The United stand. Hope you're doing well on the flagship Sunday night live show, one of my favourites of the week. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is facing a potential transfer blow this summer that could distort and change the future vision of Manchester United over the next couple of years. We'll be talking about that. Also, just want to say as well, look, somebody messaged me today and said, why are you even bothering? Why are you even bothering continuing with the United stand with everything else that's going on in the world? And I was like, I thought about it for about 2 seconds, and then I thought, why are you even bothering tweeting me? Because the United stand, we've been doing it for 5 years, 8 o'clock every Sunday night. We now do 8 o'clock every night, but it was always 8 o'clock Sunday night. And in a world of uncertainty and, who knows what's going to happen, this is real. This is something real. This was real when football was on. This was real when the transfer window was open. So it's going to be real when whatever they're throwing at us, they throw at us. So thanks everyone who is tuning in. For me, it's very important to keep doing it. And look, I read the news. I never stop checking the news. I'm sure everybody in the world never stops checking the news and the sad news and the bad news and the fear news. And this is escapism for half an hour, 45 minutes every night, where I can talk about the thing that I really love with the people who love it too. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Right, let's go. So, look, the situation with Manchester United and this potential transfer budget blow for Ollie is threefold, really. There's three factors to this. The first one is something I've been talking about for a while, about how this global crisis is going to impact on football. And people are starting to talk about it a little bit more. And there was something interesting I read today about not only is it the amount of money that clubs are losing, because, look, at the end of the day, the governments may be offering to pay contractors, the self-employed money, but they ain't going to turn up to Manchester United and go, there's £100 million that you've lost, because Manchester United's not going to go to the wall. People who are running businesses that are not going to go to the wall are not going to get handouts from the government. So football clubs in the Premier League, they ain't going to the wall if they don't play football for 3 months, but they're going to lose money. Even if they play behind closed doors, they're going to lose money. So football clubs are going to lose money, and this will distort the transfer market. How that will do that, as we've said over the last couple of weeks, we don't know. But there is also this to be considered. In a world where we're basically going through a financial crisis, what world do you think we'll live in June if Ed Woodward goes, there's £120 million for Sancho? An immoral world, a greedy world, an angry world. And I read this today, I thought this is absolutely spot on, because if United did go and spend £120 million on Sancho in June, when most of the world are, losing money, have lost money, and businesses are uncertain, it would look ridiculously immoral in many ways, wouldn't it? But I don't think Manchester United will have the club money to do that anyway. The third thing as well is Alexis Sanchez. Fabrizio Romano, I think, has said it today, but there has been rumours around Inter Milan. Well, Inter Milan are, the Serie A has been shut down longer than the Premier League. Now, do you think Inter Milan are going to go, hey, Alexis Sanchez, who's had a mediocre injury-ravaged loan deal, let's sign you up to Manchester United for 30 million and 400 grand a week. He is 100% coming back to Manchester United in the summer. And United are going to be stuck with a player where they're going to have to pay 400 grand a week to and make a decision with him. Now, what do you do with Alexis Sanchez? Before we go into all the other things, what do you do with Alexis Sanchez? Career mode's back tomorrow afternoon, Michael Aspin, and it was a great career mode in That's Football. I absolutely loved it. I actually went to sleep last night watching it, the Man City game, and I never watched myself play FIFA on the big screen. But look, Alexis Sanchez, where do you sit on Alexis Sanchez? I mean, Smutty says, what a talent. I think what a piss taker, to be honest, Smutty. This is a player that wanted to leave Manchester United last summer when Ollie was willing to give him a chance. Remember, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did a press conference around the start of July and said, Sanchez will be here, we'll give him a chance. And then a couple of weeks later, he was having to loan him to Inter Milan. That was because Sanchez made it very clear that he did not want to be at Manchester United. How can you retract and go, yeah, let's give him a chance? When we needed him at the start of the season, Ollie was not planning for Sanchez to go. You look at the scenario at the start of the season, why would he have ever wanted Sanchez to go? Lukaku had gone and didn't get replaced. Sanchez would have got a lot of game time. Like, this is something I want to spend a minute or two on here because we don't analyse this enough. Alexis Sanchez would have got a lot of game time at Manchester United this season. We had Rashford, Martial and Dan James and Mason Greenwood as a will he, won't he? We don't know what he's going to do. So Sanchez would have got game time. Solskjaer didn't want Sanchez to go. Sanchez forced the move because he was unhappy and ultimately disruptive. So we're now going to open him back with open arms and say, oh, didn't work out for you there, did it? Come back here and try again. I mean, this is the thing. We may have to do that. But he's on 400 grand a week. And the problems that were there with Sanchez a year ago will be here when he comes back. I saw Sanchez play, was it the Southampton game where he went off injured? And he's just a yard off the pace. Even though he's trying hard, he's a yard off the pace. So you imagine you bring Alexis Sanchez back next season because you're stuck with him. You've got Rashford, Martial, Bruno, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, all these players playing really well, all grafting, knowing that there's Alexis Sanchez on double the money you're on. It isn't going to work. And I really do wonder what the scenario is going to be with Alexis Sanchez next season, because I don't see how we offload a player like that. I love the content, Mark. Keep up the good work, says Resevs. Thanks for watching. So what do you do with Alexis Sanchez when this wider transfer market that we're talking about and this budget blow that Ollie will take, what do you do with Alexis Sanchez when nobody's got any money? Look, in a footballing sense, because obviously the wider world is a much more bigger concern at the moment, but let's bring it back to the thing that we love, the football. We're in a worse situation with Sanchez now than we were a year ago. The football financial market is collapsing, and we've got a player that we pay 400 grand a week to. The football world is collapsing, 400 grand a week. He's not even done well on his loan. He's a finished footballer. We are stuck with this player. What are we going to do with him? Because I think keeping him around the club just sets us back. I mean, look, you know what? If I can be absolutely honest, if I was, I just don't know what you do with Alexis Sanchez, really. Mark, even Mourinho was doing well up until he showed up and eroded the entire wage structure and started creating unrest among players, says Sagar Kapoor. He has been disruptive. Now, whether that's purposely disruptive personality, that signing destroyed everything for Mourinho. It upset Anthony Martial was on the left wing. I think he'd scored 3 goals in 4 games. He bought Sanchez and played him left wing. Disrupted the whole team. Very, very bad signing in many, many ways. Thank you for joining the Members Club, Lee Marshall. So I don't know what you do with Alexis Sanchez. I don't know. Sell him to China, says Ivan Adaud. I think in many ways, even with Sanchez, you've just got to play the long game and, sort of freeze him out. I wouldn't give him a chance because I think that chance will be thrown in your face. I would freeze him out and make him and his agent find the move for him, because that's what people do. Like, Manchester United don't decide to sell Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba's putting the feelers out through Mino Raiola. So I would say to Sanchez, you ain't got a future here. I know you're on a lot of money, but I'm not paying you. I'm not playing you just because I'm paying you. So I'd hope that would happen. But yeah, I mean, look, I was looking at this transfer thing for the show tonight, and I think it's very interesting what will happen with Alexis Sanchez in the summer. Can't we just release Sanchez, says Riff MU? Yeah, it costs us about 20 million to do it. And it'd be a massive, massive amount of money with him. I want to come back to the transfer market, but there's a couple of things I should have said to you earlier as well about the Premier League. So there's something called the Euro Index, and I was reading this on the BBC today. There's something called the Euro Index, and basically they've run things through a simulator thousands of times apparently to come up with the outcome of the Premier League. Now, I don't think for 1 minute that this will be the way that the Premier League gets decided, by the way, and I'll come on to that in a minute and what the Southampton chairman has said. But it's interesting. They threw everything in across Europe for all the leagues, this Euro Index, based on results over the last 4 years to predict what will happen. Now, ultimately, I think that's where it's flawed. Going off results over the last 4 years to figure out how the league will finish, I think is somewhat flawed. However, they had the top 4 as Liverpool, Leicester, Chelsea, Manchester United. Obviously, Man City are in there, but they're talking about the Champions League spot. So they had Manchester United coming in at 5th position, which, I personally think will finish 4th. I do think we'll finish 4th. And I don't even know why I've bothered telling you about that simulator, because ultimately it's the biggest load of shit I've ever spoken about. I mean, I just do not like that sort of thing. I just thought I'd share it with you because I read the article today. But, now I've actually heard myself talk about it rather than read it. what a crock of shit. Like, seriously, a computer's ran in, what a load of nonsense. Like, seriously, we've just got to finish the league. We've just got to finish the league. We're not having a computer simulating results based on the last 4 years. We've just got to go and finish the league. And it's interesting because the Southampton chairman came out with something today. And I was doing my video on the Mark Goldbridge channel today, basically talking about, the selfishness that we've got in the UK at the moment. We've sort of closed everything down, and yet there are people having these large gatherings, these parties, just totally going against what the advice is. And I think by doing that, they're going to elongate this period of isolation, because the whole point of the isolation is that, in a nutshell, if you've got half the world with this virus and half the world haven't got this virus, and you basically isolate the people who haven't got it and keep them away from the people that have got it, in 3 weeks, the virus will be dead because it can't pass on to anybody else. So this is the whole point of isolation. But what we've got in England at the moment, and maybe in other countries, is people with the virus, people without the virus. You're meant to be on lockdown. Synergy keeps going, which means longer and longer and longer before we get football back, before schools open again. And that's the problem. So the more we adhere to whatever to what they're trying to do and isolate people, the quicker we will turn the tide and start getting back to normal. Now, the Southampton chairman, I believe, or certainly maybe the owner or something like that, was saying about the football, and I agree with this, and I know it's not a really popular opinion at the moment, but he was basically saying that once the curve starts to come down with this virus and it's safe for footballers to play again, then he believes that footballers will quite happily provide fans with a month of football where there's football every single night to get this season done. How would that be? Probably behind closed doors. And to me, that could be May, June. It could be. And I know at the moment we know it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I don't think football needs to wait for there to be no cases. I think football needs to wait for the curve to start coming down, because ultimately, we're not going to be putting fans in football grounds anyway this season. I don't see that happening. I think this is behind closed doors. And I think after about 6 weeks of this, if we can start to turn the tide and say, let's bring football back, rugby back, whatever, but let's do it in a closed environment, then people like us who've been cooped up for 6 weeks, at least we can turn the telly on and watch some live sport, and we wouldn't give a shit if it's behind closed doors. So it's interesting that the owner of Southampton, or the chairman, has said that, because I agree with that. But people have got to take this next 6 weeks seriously and start keeping their distance from other people. And then we can turn the tide, and then we can start going back to normal, because it is idiocy, isn't it? We don't want to be in this situation where our lives are on pause. But the longer we ignore it, the longer we're going to be on pause. But I do think that. I think there is a positive spin to be had there. I do think there is a situation whereby we can turn this around in the next 6 to 7 weeks. And then as soon as it starts dropping, the Premier League will look to play behind closed doors, because ultimately there's a lot of money in this sport. And the first league that gets back showing live sport will make a lot of money worldwide. And I'll guarantee you the first league that comes back will be behind closed doors. So the Premier League will be looking at that. Mate, don't shut down United Stand. I'll get withdrawal symptoms. I also have more money for Super Chats as can't take dates out for dinner. Also, why don't you do charity for a whole day to raise money for the NHS, says Zayn Miassi. I have thought about doing that, Zayn, and I just need to sort out when I'm going to do it, because I think it's a great idea and I would really like to do that. So you're not the first person to suggest it. And Jenks1102 says, do I watch too much of your shows? I dreamed about you last night. You came here, we had beers, watched the game and had fun. Best night out in ages. Hey, Jenks, if you had a good night out, and as long as we just had drinks, that's fine by you. That's fine by me. Can we have drive-in pictures and watch in cars like in movies, says Liam Deegan. Look, you know what? Ultimately, we'll get there. We are going to get there. And we're a week closer to it than we were last week, and that's the way I look at it. I'm missing football. I'm missing snooker. I'm missing the rugby. I'm missing the cricket season starting. I'm missing my daughter playing football and taking her to training. I'm missing a lot of things, but we'll get there. We will get there. Let me just talk to you about this transfer market blow then, because some people are talking about this. So what I think the problem Ollie might have is that he's going to have a situation where his transfer budget is drastically reduced to a point where we're definitely going into a transfer market that is uncertain. It's not the market we were going into a month ago, where it was, if we get top four, we'll buy Jadon Sancho and we'll sell Paul Pogba. The values, as I've said before, look, the money that's going to drop out, Jadon Sancho might go for 20 million, Pogba might go for 30 million. It's all relative. If you sell a player, they'll go cheap, but if you buy a player, you'll buy them cheap. There may be no spending at all. And this, I think, is a positive, right? If I said to you, the transfer market is just going to be written off this summer, not because they're going to say there's not going to be a transfer market, because I think that there'll always be a transfer market if we get the football back, but more because clubs just go, we can't afford it. We're just going to have to go with what we've got next season. It's unprecedented what's happened. We've not had this happen to football since the war, where it's been called off for such a long period of time. We've come back, we've finished the season, but we've all lost money. We can't afford to make any signings. We're just going to stick with what we got. Would Manchester United be in such a bad situation if we had to end the season, then there was no signings, then we start a new season and we make no signings? Would we be in such a bad situation? I think the Alexis Sanchez thing would put us into a bad situation. But I look at our team and I think, well, Pogba would have to stay. Brandon Williams and Greenwood are going to be better next season, as will Dan James with a season under his belt. Bruno's going to get better and better. McTominay will be better. Fred's more consistent now. The back four will be better for playing together. De Gea's still here. Rashford, Martial. Alexis Sanchez is a problem. We'll still be a little bit lightweight up front, but the midfield is suddenly not a problem. The back four has never really been a problem. Going into next season without any new signings might not be the worst scenario for Manchester United. I look at somebody like a Tottenham and I think Mourinho needs signings to build his team. I look at teams like Arsenal, they need signings for Arteta and he needs to offload players as well. Liverpool obviously are going to be very stable. I think Man City need players. I do. And I think definitely Frank Lampard needs players at Chelsea. So ultimately, if there was no real signings in the summer because there's no money for anybody around there because of what's happened, United's squad actually might not be. I almost think, how can I put this? I almost think that if we had to start next season with this squad, it wouldn't impact us on any future vision that we had. It'd be different to the future vision we had because there's no doubt that we definitely want a right winger and a striker. But if we went into next season with what we've got, who's gonna, and everyone else has to do that, who's going to be better than us? Because we've been through such a rut this season to find some consistency. And I tell you what, that January signing of Bruno would be a masterstroke because no one else bought anybody in January and we did. So we'll have to just wait and see what happens. I don't necessarily think the transfer window will not happen. I think it will open, but I think it's going to be a very different transfer window whereby the value of players, the willingness of clubs to spend money could negate a transfer window as we've seen in previous years. There might be very little movement around. And that wouldn't help us in many ways because we do need to bring players in. Having said that, you look at the amount of players that are playing well for United at the moment, it might not be a bad thing. Pogba is bigger than United. He would do better for us, says Lucas Torreira is the go. I think Pogba would rather quit football than go and play for Arsenal. And loan deals or swap deals could go in our favour with players we want to move on, says Anthony Harron. You make a good point there, Anthony. You could see a situation, and look, I'm only speculating here. I'd like to get some of your comments, of course. What do you see the transfer market being whenever it opens this summer? I mean, it's not going to open in May, is it? Because we might not even have finished the season by then. But I can see if we finish the season by, let's say, mid-July, there will be a scenario where we can open the transfer window. And I just don't know whether clubs will dare commit. I think either all clubs will commit to it or no one will. It'll be almost like who moves first, because everybody has felt this. Look at what's going on in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, in the UK. They're the big four leagues in world football, and they're all been impacted by what's going on. Well, everybody is. So who's going to have the money? How are they going to do it? I think it's going to be very interesting. And you might see swap deals. In a market where where no one wants to spend money. What's your next commodity? It's the player. So that's a great point. You might see swap deals. The trouble is, I always think with United, what are you swapping for? Because if you were to swap Pogba with Real Madrid, they ain't going to give you. I mean, what have Real Madrid got anymore? I think Real Madrid are an aging, decrepit side now. I don't really see it. I mean, there will be players at Real Madrid, but is there anybody there that I'd go, yeah, give us that for Pogba? I can't really think of Real. I mean, a couple of years ago, maybe. Juventus, again, like, I think swap deals may be a thing, but I don't see where they'd benefit United. Hi, Mark. Do you want Pogba to stay or go? Says Fire. Right, I will start taking some of your questions now. It is Saturday night, of course. I don't know. I mean, Michael Mairstar says loans with option to buy. Maybe that would be interesting. And what you've got to take into account is that I think footballers ultimately will always look after their career. And I saw somebody there saying, well, what about Sancho? He might want to leave Manchester. He might want to leave. He might force a move from Dortmund, but you can't force a move if Dortmund don't get the money that they want. And I think everybody might just have to wait a year and see what happens. And also, as I've said before, I really can see a scenario where football comes back May, June time, and then in autumn this thing comes back and we have to shut down for 3 or 4 months again. So we might be in a very unstable time anyway. I mean, look, that's a great point. And I'm not bigging myself up here, but that is a great point. And it fits into this transfer scenario again. And I must have just say about Pogba, very quickly, just to answer that question. In a month ago, if you asked me about Pogba, I would say it's time for him to go. He wants to go. I think United need to turn a page. He wants to go. It's not hate. I just think it's a divorce, and that's the way it should go. Now, with what's going on, I think, well, we're not living in that world anymore. How does Pogba even get his move? How do United allow that move to happen? So I think that, look, if Pogba stays, he stays. I think he's a fantastic player. I've always thought that. I just don't think the relationship with United works. But we're in a totally different world now. So I think the chances of Pogba staying are increasing, as we've heard. And as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I've actually had good information about Pogba and United over the last year, and United's stance has always been the same. He ain't going anywhere. And what did Ollie say to Flex in that press conference a couple of weeks ago? We sort of forget that because of what happened immediately after that last Lynx game where everything got called off. In the press conference, Pogba, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, you can expect to see him here next season. And that was before all of this. So we need to change the lyrics and replace Sanchez for Bruno in Ollie's at the Wheel song, says Imrano TV. We definitely do. Yeah, we definitely do. But yeah, just going back to what I was on about there. And thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. Please do smash a like on the video. I'm really, really proud of the fact that we've got 4,500 watching the show still. I mean, I don't know where some people have gone. I mean, we've had more people watching in the past. It's not about how many people are watching, though. I'm just glad that people are still going to something that we had before. And for me, you know, I've got to admit, my days are very different to what they have been for the last 5 years. But then I get to 10 to 8 and I think this is my security blanket. This is the thing I do. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Keep doing it. We're still going to keep doing it. We've got some good shows coming up for you this week, actually. Really good shows. I think you're going to really enjoy them. So keep watching, subscribe, and smash a like, please. But what I was going to say about the transfer, about this situation is, and it does feed into the transfer market as well, is I'm sure everybody's doing this. I'm sure, you know, we're watching our box sets. We're watching me play FIFA career mode. You know, you're watching the United stand, but you're watching the news as well. You know, even if you never used to watch the news, you're watching the news. You're looking at articles on the website. And I've read a lot of things and I've listened to a lot of people. And I think until we get a vaccine, this is a very, very uncertain dilemma for the globe. And I think what's going to happen is we've basically in a situation wherever you live where we're sort of in these lockdown world at the moment, and football stopped. That's what we are. We're a football channel, so football stopped. We are on the 22nd of March. Nothing football wise is going to happen for another 6 weeks at least, which takes us to the end of April. But 6 weeks with this pandemic is a long time. If you think about 6 weeks ago, this was a problem in China. It wasn't even really in Europe, not to the extent that it is. So in 6 weeks' time, it's a long time. in the world of this virus. It's not a long time. 6 weeks isn't a long time, really, but in the world of this pandemic, it is. So I think what's going to happen is, in 6 weeks' time, I really do believe in 6 weeks' time, we'll be starting to come down. I still think it'll be a massive problem, but we'll be starting to come down. And I think in some time in May or June, they'll make a decision that we're going to start playing football again behind closed doors. That's just a prediction. That's what I think is going to happen. And people will go, oh, you're ridiculous. We'll be like this for a year. Well, this is what I think. I think in May or June, they'll start doing games behind closed doors. And I think we'll start to see other sports coming back as well. So that's what I think is going to happen. But I think when we do get it back, when we hit September, October time and it gets colder again, I think this virus will come back again. And it might come back again with such a punch that we have to go back to doing what we're doing right now, which is the isolation tactics, the closing of the schools, the shutting down of football. Again, that's what I mean about the transfer window. It's like you come through this, you get back, you then go and sign Jadon Sancho for 100 million, and then in 3 or 4 months into the next season, they're putting it on lockdown again. Why would you go and spend any money when you know you're going to go and lose more money again, and you've just lost money now? So I think this uncertainty of this isn't just this scenario. I think we do come back, we play a bit, and then we have a block again. So I'd just be very surprised, really, if we see a transfer window that we resemble or are familiar with for a few years. Because I still think players will move, but I think things are going to almost be like, I don't know how you do it, because Sancho's got a value to Dortmund. But what is that value anymore? And Sancho certainly wants to leave Dortmund, but what is that value anymore? Mark, I don't believe there can be football in Europe for at least 4 months minimum. The cases and fatalities keep rising, says Mojo. Yeah, look, I can talk to you about that sort of stuff if people want to do it. Mojo, you're right, but it's all about curves. It's all about curves with this. And the cases are rising, but in Italy, they could start coming down any time. And they'll still be massive, but as soon as that curve starts coming down in Italy and it keeps coming down and coming down and coming down, you're on the slide down. And somewhere along that slide down, in Italy, they might say, look, let's start doing Serie A behind closed doors to give people something to hang on to in these moments of isolation. So football can come back before schools and everything else open. Of course it can. But look, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I don't think... I think, look, I've heard people say it could, things could start to get better at the start of May. I've heard people saying it won't be better for a year. I choose to look at it on a positive way. And as I keep saying to people, look, my footprint on this world is that of a worm in an ocean. It's very, very small. But I'll tell you now, it's simple. It's simple mathematics. You can see, it really is simple. If you have one person who's got this virus and 10 other people in a room that don't have it, and he walks around talking to all of them, they're all going to get it. If those 10 people all go and stand in different areas of the room and tell him to stay away from them, no one's going to get it apart from him. When he's better, the virus is gone. It is simple like that. 10 people in a room, one of them's got it, the room's quite big. Do you mingle and have a chat and then everyone gets it? Or do you all separate around the room and keep yourself even further away from the person who's got it? The person who's got it will get over it, or whatever will happen to them. The virus is gone unless it can latch onto somebody else. And we've got to isolate as much as we can. We've got to isolate ourselves. And that will mean everything we love back quicker. When the season comes back, who will United use more, Pogba or Rashford, says Joseph Hudson. And Adams Anacola says, I know what we're dealing with is bigger than football, but not until football was taken from us. I've never had problems with mental health until now, says Adams Anacola. And this is part of why the United stand is important to me, and it's important to a lot of you lot as well, is that we have this thing we're going through is very much like, it's a bit like a prison sentence in a way, isn't it? It is very difficult to adjust to when you haven't got the things that you always need and love, which is why I love doing my FIFA career mode. If anyone's not watched it, Mark Goldbridge, That's Football. That's not self-promotion. I was sat there I played it last night at between 8 and 9 o'clock. And then at 11:30, I watched the Man City game of my career mode because I knew it was 20 minutes in bed. just enjoying like a match of the day. It was weird. I just never thought I would find myself doing that. But I watched my career mode back, even though I'd played it a couple of hours before, to watch the goals back and some of the movement, because that was my match of the day. Coping mechanisms, really, really important. Opening up to the fact that you're struggling, really, really important. And I put my hands up. I've had times over the last week where I've been really low. I wish, I've always said I wish I was one of those people that cried easily, because I think crying is a way of letting it out, and it's not saying cry. It's not a cry for help. It's an emotional time. It's an emotional time, which is why this is very important that we keep doing the things that we do. Who do you think we should sign as a right winger if we miss out on Sancho? Says Nakul Vasani. I mean, this is the $1 million question, Nassel. It really is. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know what United are looking at if they don't, but they desperately need it. We don't have at Manchester United a right winger anyway. Dan James is not a right winger. He's better on the left. Lingard, Mata, they're not right wingers. Chong, well, some would say he's not a right winger anyway. And Chong's got to win. I like Chong, but he's got to win over a lot of United fans to have a future at the club, and probably needs a loan anyway. So we actually don't have a right winger. Sancho would more than solve that problem, and it's the problem we want. It's the player we want to solve that problem. But United do need to have backup options in that situation. Footy behind closed doors only happens if countries issue stay-at-home orders. People will congregate outside stadiums. Otherwise, it's already happened, says Sid T. I don't know, Sid. I don't know about that. I don't know why. I don't know whether we'd have that problem in the UK. I don't think we would, because you know what? You make a good point. Maybe they won't be able to do closed doors behind that, because ultimately the emergency services are going to be very stretched anyway. Why start doing something else? The government just might say, no, we don't want you to do it at the moment. But then again, they might start saying it's important to get that back, because our Prime Minister has already said that, the mental health, the mental health of people is very important to him. Of course it is, but you could disperse people from outside the grounds. You wouldn't have a problem doing that, but it's having the people to do it. I'm not doing the career mode after Charlie. It's back tomorrow, I'm afraid. It's Mother's Day today, and there are things I need to do. Mark, do you like the look of Cantwell? His name doesn't get mentioned enough around Manchester United, says Rick. Cantwell from Norwich, I think he's going to go to Liverpool. Abubakar Ali says Trent or Wan-Bissaka, Mark. Wan-Bissaka for me. I mean, I don't really like Liverpool, but I can look at them and give them some respect in relation to their players. Van Dijk's the best centre-back in the world, and Trent Alexander-Arnold's one of the best right-backs in the world. But for me, a right back's first job is to defend, and Wan-Bissaka's a better defender than Trent Alexander-Arnold. So if you're asking me, when I'm picking my team, who's going to be my player, it's going to be Wan-Bissaka, because defensively he's better. Ryan Giggs or Ronaldo, says Luther Moss. That's a silly question. It's Ronaldo. And Adama Traore, great right winger for Man United, to CL Lee. Look, you know what? Seriously, I like Sarr at Watford. I like Adama Traore at Wolves. And I think they're both players that could step up and do a job at Manchester United, because we haven't really got anyone to do that role at the moment. But I think a lot of people mentally have put their eggs in one basket with Sancho. And I think maybe Manchester United have done that as well. 50 million good enough for Ighalo, and can we afford it? Says Sarang. Well, you know what, Sarang, you've just made a great point there about Ighalo. I mean, Ighalo is a player that wants to come to Manchester United. He's on 300 grand a week in China. They want 15 million pounds for him. Do you commit 15 million pounds in the current climate? Can you afford to pay 15 million pounds in the current climate? You could pay 15 million pounds for Ighalo, and then because of the crashing of the financial world, the very next day, Chelsea could go and sign Milinkovic-Savic from Lazio for 20 million, even though he's probably worth 80 million. So you've got to be very careful about any commitment you make at the moment, because you could make a big mistake. And I don't want to sort of keep going back to it, but it's very important. If you've got a financial mind, or even if you've got a football transfer mind, I said a few minutes ago, who's going to move first? Who's going to make the move first? Because somebody's got to redress the value of transfers in football, because that could happen. You could go, 15 million for Igalo, that's a good deal. The very next day, Chelsea signed Milinkovic-Savic for 20 million, and United are like, what's going on here? Well, Lazio need the money. They can't demand 80 million. There's no money in football, and we got him on the cheap. All right. You've just bought a 31-year-old for 15 million, which actually is the equivalent of 100 million 3 months ago. So, it's how the rebalance of value in football is going to happen, and it's who makes that happen. Because, Ed Woodward might ring up Borussia Dortmund and say, you know what, Sancho might have been worth 100 million back in March, but after all this crisis, we'll give you 30. And Dortmund go, get stuffed. But then Real Madrid ring up on the next minute and say, Pogba was worth 130 million in March, we'll give you 50. And Ed Woodward goes, oh, yeah, I sort of see what you're saying, but I can't get Sancho for that price. So, there's got to be some realism to get the transfer window going. Defensively, I don't think there's a better right-back in football because Trent is hugely vulnerable at the back, says Adam Zanacola. Yeah, look, I think if you combine Trent Alexander-Arnold and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, you've got the best, probably one of the best right-backs ever. I mean, what Trent Alexander-Arnold does going forward is amazing. What Wan-Bissaka does going backwards defensively is unbelievable. They're both very good. And look, England aren't going to be playing in the Euros in the summer because we're not having the Euros. But if they had played in the Euros, I'm pretty sure Southgate would have gone with Trent Alexander-Arnold. But for me, it's a proper debate to have. And, England are blessed at right back because Reece James is very good as well at Chelsea. Would you sign St. Maximum, says the gameplay master? I do like him, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not so sure about him. I think Traore's done it at a higher level. And I think Sarr has got great potential at Watford. Traore is probably the best of the three. Mike Thomas, Mark, one thing overlooked is that China now has a wage cap of, I think, 250 grand a week for new signings. So any hope of Sanchez going there is waning. Well, it's gone, Mike, and that's a very good point. It's absolutely gone, isn't it? What do you think about Lanzini, says Johnny Najam. He's never been anybody I've considered for United, if I'm absolutely honest with you. Oh, just going to lose my arm and nearly my head there. How did I do that? Oh, I tell you what. Rick says, look outside the Premiership, ignore a Grealish and a Maddison. They're overpriced. Look at Kai Havertz or Van der Beek. Well, you know what, Rick? I agree with you halfway, and then I disagree with you because Kai Havertz will cost more than Grealish and Maddison. They want about 90 million. Van der Beek, I agree, 40 million you probably get him for. But I'm not convinced that Van der Beek's better than Grealish and Maddison, if I'm honest with you. I think Havertz is a very good player, but I don't think you'll get him cheap either. What do you think of Sabitzer, from RB Leipzig as Impulse? I mean, look, I haven't seen loads of him, but from what I saw of him, I think he's a player that would suit the Premier League really well. He's got that athleticism, that flair, and that tenacity that I think he would be a decent player in the Premier League. And I could almost see him going to Liverpool and going up a level. I don't know whether United would look at him, but I do agree. He looks like he's got something. And if De Gea leaves, would you let Romero start, says Tara Tariq? I think Henderson's the answer there. Mark, any update on Bellingham, says Mojo? Check out the transfer show from this morning. We are doing a transfer show every morning because there's always news about United. The news about Bellingham, just to encapsulate the week, so I'm not repeating what I said this morning. So Bellingham obviously went to United to look at Carrington a couple of weeks ago. He's also spoken with Dortmund and Bayern and Chelsea. I was speaking to somebody in the week who knows somebody very high up at Birmingham, and they were saying, look, Bellingham's going to go, but they feel he's going to stay in this country. Then there's the story last night that Dortmund have offered him more money than Man United. And Dortmund can offer him the blueprint of what they've done with people like Sancho and Haaland. You go straight into the team, we'll develop you. I just think he'll stay in England. And I think if he stays in England, he'll come to Manchester United. And I think he would be a fantastic signing. But you know what? We've got to go back to what we were talking about there. Any deal that's done with Bellingham, what is that deal? In the current world, what is that deal? Can you go to Birmingham and say, yeah, we were going to give you 30 million, but in the current world, we're going to give you 5 because that 30 doesn't have that value anymore. I think the one thing about this big picture is all bets are off. I never thought I was going to live in a world where planes weren't flying to different countries. I never thought I was going to live in a world where they were trying to lock us down. It's like something out of a bloody 1990s action film. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And ultimately, it's not as bad as the scenario we're living in, because fortunately, people are dying, but people who are dying are vulnerable, underlying health conditions, elderly. Not always, but the vast majority are. And we're protecting them, and we're trying to stop the spread and the overwhelming of our health services. And that's the right thing to do. We will come out of this. We will come out of this. But what we're going to come out of this is a very different world. I feel sad for the young people, my kids, other people's kids, because I never had this growing up. I didn't have this world. I was protected from these things. You only ever saw it on a film, and they're living it now. They're being taken away from their friends, their school friends, their schools, and it must be very, very disconcerting for them. And they're going to be fine, and everything's going to go back to normal. But the thing about things going back to normal is you don't forget the thing that wasn't normal. And we're all going to come out of this very different. And sport's going to come out of it very different. And, you know, politics are going to come out of it very different. And friendships and everything are going to come out of it very different, because you're going to realise how important they are. And you're also going to realise how quickly they can be taken away. So, however temporary. So I think that that with football, it's just a whole new world that they're going to have to redress. And I don't think you're coming out of it and going, yeah, let's carry on as normal. There's 100 million for Sancho. I just don't see how that happens. Clubs have lost so much money. There's so much uncertainty now. But players will still want to move. Mark, I guess the valuations will be arrived at, but the payments to selling clubs will be staggered across 2 or 3 seasons, says Mojo. Maybe, but... Yeah, maybe. But the thing is, if you think about something like the Premier League deal that's just been done, or a Champions League deal where Amazon have paid a load of money to the Premier League, well, that will be based on projections of subscribers paying for Sky, paying for Amazon Prime because of Premier League football. Hopefully, when we come out of this, not many people will be worse off than they are now, but a lot of people might be. And if they are a lot worse, they might not have the money to spend on Amazon Prime or Sky Sports or BT Sports. And therefore, that value of that sponsorship for those companies diminishes and makes them lose money. Football and a lot of other things could lose money, and maybe will lose money. And that will have a big impact on the transfer market. To be honest with you, the transfer market's overinflated anyway. I think a more realistic transfer market or a cap on transfer fees would be a great idea. But nobody ever wanted to do that while the money was rolling in. We are about to see a different world because the money will dry up. And I don't have the answers at the moment, but we have been speaking about it for a couple of weeks. And I'm very surprised. We're getting 1 or 2 people now. But I'm very surprised the mainstream media haven't bothered thinking about this or talking about it, because I think we are heading for a different world in relation to that. Football will go back to the same. Of course it will. We're not going to lose that. But I think the way, even players' wages, etc. Is Glazers' main income shopping centres or are they broke? Says Fred the Red. I've got no interest in the Glazers, to be honest with you. Fred the Red, their income comes from deals, merchandise, season tickets. Stephen Diak. And we will come out of this, says Ha Funny One. Gilmore looks a very good player, I've always said that. Alisson is the best keeper in the world, easily, says Cress Welsing. Disagree. Alisson is... There's an Alisson debate going on. Most honestly say that the red Bruno shirt is better than the dark blue or black one, says Victor Anstad. I just like the black Bruno one. You can get your Bruno t-shirts. We do other t-shirts as well. The link's in the video description. I just like the black one. I think... but the red one is the obvious one to go for, isn't it? Red Manchester United, red Portugal, Bruno. Yeah, but I love it. Fantastic t-shirt. Links in the video description if you want to get one of those. I've got this isn't navy blue, it's black. It just might be the lighting. And I've got the red one as well. In fact, I might wear the red one for you on the tomorrow morning show. Pookie. I've seen a few people talking about Pookie, and Vandy Candy's talking about Pookie. Even Frost, thank you very much. Please smash a like on the video. We're nearly at 1,000 likes, so if everyone hits it, we'll do it. Pukki as a backup striker, yeah, but surely we've got... I mean, I'm happy with Agallo. I am, and there's not a massive age difference between Pukki and Agallo. And from what I've seen of Agallo, I would argue that maybe Agallo's better than Pukki. So yeah, it's just we're walking into the unknown, aren't we? I think all I can say is that football will be back, real life will be back. We're hitting a pause button, but when we hit play again, there will be aspects of it that are uncertain. I'm certain football is going to be back. I think we're going to see football in the summer, and we're going to love it. But I don't know I've got no idea what the transfer market's going to be, and I don't think we can pretend to think it's going to be the same, which is why Solskjaer will face the transfer budget blow, because it's just not going to be what it was before all this happened. If we can't move Sanchez, then what would that hamper us getting a striker, says Mike Thomas. Yeah, and we've gone full circle with that. How do you unload on Alexis Sanchez in an uncertain market when he's on ridiculous money? You can't, and he's playing shit. Like, you cannot. We're going to have to give Alexis Sanchez a chance. We're going to have to give a player that we don't want at the club, that's got nothing to do with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because it's Mourinho's problem and Woodward's problem, that Solskjaer will have to inherit. It's not fair, it's not right, but I don't see a solution to it. We're going to have to do something with the best paid player in the Premier League. I mean, that makes me sick. The best paid player in the Premier League is our player, and he isn't even worthy of a spot on the bench. There we go. I'd love to sign Partey and Oud Masood. What will happen with Ziyech and Chelsea, says Conor McLaughlin? Well, I presume that deal's been done. So, then again, any contract's got a get-out clause. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ziyech deal fell through. If there's an opportunity for it to fall through, there might be. Who knows? Stay away from as many people as possible, says Monetizing Dissent. Look, it's common sense, isn't it? But unfortunately, common sense is somewhat lacking at times with the human race. And I think the one thing I would say to everybody, because I know people are uncertain, and I know that I'm uncertain as well, and that's why, I do Going for Goldbridge on my channel, Mark Goldbridge. I did a video this afternoon, which was a bit of a rant, if you want to go and watch that. It's not about football, and I've started doing it more or less daily because it's a way for me to sort of, I suppose it's therapy in a way, to just talk about what's going on. But as I said, the point is, we're a week closer to this being over than we were a week ago. Every day we move forward, we're moving closer to the end of this. Who knows how long it's going to be, but the fact is, every day we are moving closer towards the end of it, and that's what you've got to cling on to. And you've just got to make the best of a bad situation. And I must admit, I find I'm really tired, even though, I don't know how you lot feel, I find I'm really tired even though I'm doing less, and that doesn't even make any sense. And I think it's the emotion, the mental strain. There's a lot going on, and we've got to give ourselves a break and understand that. Agallo for Sanchez swap deal, says Razboot. Well, I'd like to see that happen, but maybe the 500, the wage cap would stop it happening. Let me just have a quick look. Reese Evans, I love the content, Mark. Keep up the good work. I'm just making sure I haven't missed any super chats. Are United stands still streaming classic matches online, says Stephen Hughes? Manchester United are doing them every couple of nights. I'm only going to do the ones I want to watch. I didn't want to do Chelsea Man United last night. Cup final. Didn't fancy it. Transfer fees go plummeting, then so do wages, says Ryan. Well, the thing about wages, Ryan, is that they're on contracts, aren't they? So if you are David De Gea on £300,000 a week on a contract you signed a year ago, that contract those wages will keep being paid for however long that contract is. Which might, but any new signings, you might be saying, I can't afford the wages. I just think, in many ways, it's going to be a very interesting world in football when it comes back. It's going to be a very interesting world in general, but the transfer market will not be the same. I'll be stunned if it's the same when it comes back. Football will be the same, but transfers won't be. How can it be? Clubs are losing loads of money. Loads of money. Revenue that they thought they were going to get, they're not going to get. And if football comes back behind closed doors, that's even more revenue that you've lost. And football has got a big decision to make. Big decision to make. Because do you just get it back to finish the season? Do you avoid it and lose the money anyway? And I think that we're not going to end this season with fans we're not going to end the season with fans, I don't think. So do you finish the season with no fans, or do you just void the season? Well, if you void the season, you make no money. And if you finish the season with no fans, you make way less money than you would have made, but you still make money potentially from, hopefully, the government saying every game can be shown on TV. Because if there are no fans allowed into the ground, how do people watch Aston Villa play Bournemouth at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon? You've got to put it on the TV, and that might generate income. But we're moving. That's probably something for the future, but it's certainly something of interest. Tomorrow night we're doing a call-in, 8 o'clock. We're doing the call-in. It's on the Discord. So thank you everybody for watching tonight. Please do smash a like on the video. You can get your Bruno t-shirts. The link's in the video description for that. And I will see you tomorrow. Smash a like. Thanks everybody. Really appreciate everybody who's tuning in. I hope you're getting from it what I'm getting from it. Trying to keep it normal. Trying to focus on the thing that this channel's all about, which is our football club and our football chat. It's escapism. It's pure escapism. We know what's going on outside the door. We know what's coming over the next few weeks. But this is our escape. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.